Again, make sure your mics are muted when someone else is talking. But for now, we're gonna go over all of the candidates and have them introduce themselves and their positions one more time. We'll start with the presidential candidates.
Hi, I'm Kim Tran and I'm running for president.
Hi, I'm Dennis Royal and I'm running for sophomore president.
Hi, I'm Michaela Manenzala and I'm running for president.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to vice president candidates.
Hi, I'm Tina Nguyen and I'm running vice president.
Hello, my name is Robin Inocencio and I'm running to be sophomore vice president.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to secretary candidates.
Hi, my name is Olcini Deskill and I'm running for class 2025 secretary.
Hi, I'm Ella and I'm running to be 2025 secretary.
And then we'll move on to the treasurer candidates.
Hi, I'm Rebecca and I'm running for class of 25 treasurer.
My name is Rodas and I'm running for treasurer.
The very first question is directed towards everyone. What new ideas do you have for your class office this upcoming school year, and how do you plan on engaging your class with those ideas? We will start with the treasurer candidates. Rebecca, your 1 minute begins.
I would try to include different fundraisers that can be chosen by the class of 25 and find different ways to get them engaged in choosing and deciding what they would want to have, in order to benefit class of 25 with more money for the class, to create more activities for them and to have them have a voice in what we decide to do.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the other treasurer candidate, Huero. Your 1 minute starts now.
One idea that I have for my class this upcoming school year is to really connect more with the students and have them have more of a say in what they would want, and have them essentially give more of an opinion on what they would like to see from the class office in terms of things such as like new products, such as like boba, or what type of food they would like, because it's been essentially kind of the same with how we're fundraising money. So I would like to change that up a little bit.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the president candidates. We'll start with Jen. Your 1 minute starts now.
This year, I have a lot of fun ideas that I would want to incorporate if elected. One of them being kickstarting a YouTube channel where we would essentially have recap videos for HOCO and BOTC, just to hype the class up, as well as different fundraisers for, people to, because I think fundraisers are so essential to us raising money, especially if we want good senior activities like prom. More class merch, definitely more diverse, more variety, more other than class shirts, class hoodies, bananas in our class color, pins, etc. And by getting my class involved, I would really reach out individually and also provide something called a feedback form, where we'd send out anonymous forms where anyone can send in tips or feedback or questions that they have.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on to the other presidential candidate, Michaela. Your 1 minute begins now.
So starting off with participation, how we did it this year was that students would repost their pictures on Instagram, and that's how ASB would count participation. But I think that a more inclusive way to do this would be for students to go up to an officer to senior stage, and then the officer would just mark their participation. This is a great way for officers to talk to students, and it also allows people who aren't on social media or who don't like to post on social media still participate. Another one is fundraisers. Like the previous candidate said, I think that we should do things similar to the chocolate fundraiser that we did this year, which is when the officers would carry around a box of chocolate and then people would just go up to us. I like that it was only $1 because everyone has a $1 carrying around with them. So I think this year what we could do is have officers carry around a tote bag with $1 filled goodies that the class could even pick out by themselves, like on a form or anything.
Your time is up. Thank you. And then we'll move on to the last presidential candidate, Kim. Your 1 minute begins now.
So many ideas have popped up from wanting to improve and just random conversations with people I've met this year. And so some ideas I have that involve the class for sophomore year include an official group of painters and dancers that'll help paint or choreograph things throughout the year. And I feel like we can get more involvement from that outside of our cabinet and close friend groups, because our class does have a lot of talented people. And I'd also want to improve fundraisers and bonds with ideas such as giveaways, raffles, selling mochi donuts, boba, cookies, ice cream, snacks, and other ideas from the class. And I'd also like to have a class movie night, potluck, or even sunset watching to raise money and bond. More involvement and inclusiveness can also improve with like anonymous forums to hear everyone's voices, or posting video recaps and montages of events and just getting to know class officers. And we could also hang around physical flyers about events going on to keep everyone updated. And they can include like a QR code that you can scan.
Thank
That
you.
will,
Okay, and then we'll move on to the secretary candidates. We'll start with Aldrin. Your 1 minute begins now.
So I some ideas I have is we need to be more inclusive with class 2025. We need to reach out with their opinions. We need your opinion and your voices. So definitely in person, talking with your peers and the officers, just generally interacting would be a great start. And then you'll have other means such as Google Classroom, forums, basically generally trying to get a class opinion and have class of 2025 be more involved and have their opinions respected in this election.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the other secretary candidate, Ella. Your 1 minute begins now.
Sorry. Okay, so first off, I would want to listen to the student body's ideas and what they want, because not only is it important to listen to class cabinet's ideas and get put into action, it's also really important to have the student body, like class of 2025, and see what they want. By doing so, we can have like anonymous Google Forms, or we can even meet in person or through Zoom, whichever is most convenient. But some of the ideas I do have is grams. Like on special occasions, we would, okay, so class officers would make grams, and then we would sell them, and then we would just deliver it to the class of 2025 in the classrooms. Another idea I have, one of the candidates said this earlier, but it's like a class money in the movie night in the theater, I think, and we can all vote for a movie, and this also can be a way for us to bond as a class and a fundraiser, because they would pay for the ticket to get admissions into the movie, obviously. And then another one is organize monthly food and drink fundraisers, because we
Your
need
time
more
is up.
money.
Thank you. And then last but not least, we'll move on to our vice president candidates, and we'll start with Robin. Your 1 minute begins now.
An idea I have for class office this upcoming year is a way for organization within the cabinet. It's our duty to do what our role is supposed to do, but sometimes I feel like the work gets a little overwhelming. So I want us all to split up the work, and while we all split up the work and help each other out, we each focus on interacting with our class and talking to them while getting to know them. So we understand what they want, and then we can like talk to them, like get them excited, so then we can engage with them. And also I would like for us to have as much online advertising, but also some sort of physical advertisement, such as flyers or using the speakers, so then our class knows what's going on, even if they don't have social media or check their email often.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the other vice president candidates. Candidate Tina, your 1 minute begins now.
To start off, I think our class already has so much spirit. To build on it, we can have more fun events like quad day or tailgate. And to bond with each other, we can have even more by having, like other candidates have said, a movie night with a projector and like possibly a blanket, like in a quad. And also, like other candidates said, anonymous feedback forms can like help a lot, because we want to know what students want and what they can add. Like we can add them to our spirit days for our upcoming school year, and we can add more advertisement through email. And because I think every student pretty much has an email, and it's like not hard to check. And we have social media. So on Instagram, we already have a lot advertising on there, but we can also use our TikTok account to advertise even more for our class.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the next question. The next question is directed towards everyone. Have you been involved in your freshman year? If not, why? And if you were, just explain your involvement. This time we'll start with the secretary candidates, and we'll start with Ella. Your 1 minute begins now.
Okay, so yeah, I've been involved and I try to help as much as I can, but not as much as I want to. But some of the involvement I have is I'm a part of the girls volleyball team here at Independence, and I'm also a part of a club called Helping Hands, and I've been involved with service hours for that. I've also participated in spirit weeks, rally games. I also participated in the Battle of Classes rally. I was a part of a couple of games, like 4, I believe, or somewhere around that. Then I also was in the airband performance, which is like really last minute, but I just had to fill in. And then I also helped with airband props, and I also help with the guys volleyball team a lot, even though I'm not their manager, but I still help as much as I can. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to the other secretary candidate, Aldrin. Your 1 minute begins now.
Personally, I have somewhat been involved in class 2025's high school year. I've been in our Student Equity Council, pioneering ideas to help change our campus and create a more inclusive environment for our staff and our students, and helping out with our robotics team as an assistant team manager, assisting them whenever they need. And I was able to participate as a coach in our Rowdy Rough team, helping us guide our freshmen and getting more of an insight into what high school life really is. I really wish I could have been more involved this year, but with this election, I can do so.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on to our vice president candidates. And we'll start with Tina. Your 1 minute begins now.
Well, I was your freshman class AC, and I've been helping out at every single rally. I've been helping out with all the past air bands, whether it was homecoming air band, Christmas air band, or BOTC air band. I've been choreographing and performing in them. I have been in the Rowdy Rough competition team, and I helped coach the Rowdy Rough cheer team. And you might have seen me at a basketball game or a football game because I'm a cheerleader. I've helped with painting backgrounds and painting props, and I loved being involved with my freshman year so far, and I can't wait to build on it.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the other vice president candidate, Robin. Your 1 minute begins now.
I've been involved during my freshman year. This year, I was our class's secretary and a freshman class director for Key Club, which is a role that focuses on reaching out and communicating to the freshmen, which are a part of Key Club. I also participate in Spirit Days and try to join groups under the freshman class, such as me helping coach the Rowdy Rough competition team, being a part of the Rowdy Rough cheer team, and air band for HOCO. I was also the vice president of Model UN, and I also joined other clubs and joined their general meetings.
And then we'll move on to the presidential candidates, and we'll start with Michaela. Your 1 minute begins now.
This question. I was actually very involved in freshman year. Starting off, I was class president, which I led airband, tailgate, quad days, rallies. But outside of class office, I was the JV boys volleyball manager, which I am still now. I was also a part of the JV girls volleyball team. I performed with NBC, which I performed with Welcome Back Rally, Multicultural Rally, and the Talent Show. I'm also a Bring Change to Mind member. So yeah, and I hope to grow on that this year too, or sophomore year.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to Kim. Your 1 minute begins now.
This freshman year, I kind of went all out with trying new things, and I served as this year's freshman vice president, helping out with and organizing airband, BOTC, tailgate, quad day, and a bunch of rallies. And I also stayed involved in many clubs, being an Interact board member, yearbook club editor-in-chief, Model UN co-media, and partaking in other clubs like VSA, CSF, Greenhouse, UNICEF, and a lot more.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the last presidential candidate, Jen. Your 1 minute begins now.
I think that I've been really involved this year. Within our class, I was the main character for our homecoming air band. I was on the Rowdy Rough competition team. I participated in almost all of the BOTC games. And overall, I'm really spirited. I show up in some like crazy stuff sometimes. And I encourage others to do so as well. Outside of our class, I am the current co-historian for Speech and Debate Club, and I have been just elected as the co-treasurer for it. I'm representative for cross country for our athletic senate, and I am currently on the cross country and track and field team. I've also been a part of other clubs, and I've done Greenhouse and I've been a general member in other clubs.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the treasurer candidates and we'll start with Huera. Your 1 minute begins now.
This year, I've really been I've been involved in Hoko. No, sorry. I've been involved in Airband October. I joined the wrestling team, and I really helped out over there. The wrestling team was really dying, so I went on and I joined, and I had a lot of fun. And I also helped out at Airband. I was one of the actors playing one of the kids, and I was also playing as the grandma. I also participated in the Battle of the Class games, only one though, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on to the next treasurer candidate, Rebecca. Your 1 minute begins now.
In the general independence community, I have been involved in varsity cross country, soccer, and track. And I have also been a part of the Winter Guard team, as well as Hoko Airband in the beginning of the year. I believe that I was pretty involved with the community with these different events and how there was like a lot of bonding as well in these, and how like a lot of these sports and different activities have brought me more like spirit within the school community, as well as participating in spirit days and trying to help out as much as I can with different assemblies. Not just assemblies, but like I helped out a little with props for Airband as well.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the next question, which is directed only to the president candidates. As a president, delegation of tasks is really important. How would you delegate the tasks to your cabinet fairly? So we'll start with Kim. Your 1 minute to answer starts now.
I'd make sure everyone knows their position, role, and specific tasks they're meant to do. Just like a simple conversation with them and really communicating is key, because this year there was a lot of confusion and working things out. And I believe next year we can still help each other, but just not as much to the point where we're taking each other's assigned roles. If like they've never filled out fundraisers forums as treasurer or taken meeting minutes as secretary, we'll figure it out and teach each other as a group, because there needs to be a lot of communication, and I believe we can help each other out at first, but eventually we'll all have to know our role and what we're meant to do.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on to Michaela. Your 1 minute starts now.
I agree with Kim. I think it's really important. I also think it's really important to know your cabinet personally and know what they're good at. Also knowing what they deal with outside of school, because you don't want to overwork a person, and you want to make sure everything's equal. So if you know that someone's dealing with something at home, maybe the other officers can take on their job for a little bit until everything gets better. I think we did a pretty good job this year. I think we have a lot to improve on. But like this year, Tina and Naomi mainly focused on choreographing while I directed, and then Kim and Marsha helped out with mixtape. But we're pretty aware of what we need to work on, and I know what needs to be fixed for sophomore year.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, we will have Jen. Your 1 minute to answer starts now.
Communication. Constantly checking in with the cabinet. I think with a cabinet of 7 people, you need to be making sure that everything is going smoothly. A part of that is building strong relationships with each cabinet member and making sure that you are becoming a person that they don't feel they can approach you without having to fear anything or to express any concerns or ideas. Definitely, keeping being patient and understanding nobody's perfect. However, keeping everyone with the expectation that they need to hold up their weight within the cabinet, and if they're not, then simply have gentle conversation with them, but definitely no losing my temper or yelling at any of my other cabinet members.
Okay, Thank you. And with that, we'll be moving on to the next question, which is directed towards everyone. Why did you choose to run for your specific position? We will start with the vice president candidates, and we'll start with Robin. Your 1 minute to answer begins now.
I chose to run to be vice president because I want to help our class of 2025, get a higher place or even potentially win BOTC. I want to help lead our class in activities we have in the future, such as air bands, rowdy refs, fundraisers, and class bonding events. And I want to help oversee our class in what we decide to do in the future.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on to Tina. Your 1 minute begins now.
As your freshman class AC, I feel as though that I could have done a lot more. So with me being vice president, I can assist others more and not only just help what I can do, but even more by maybe learning by seeing what other people can do and then building onto that.
Okay, thank you. And then we will move on to the treasurer candidates, and we'll start with Rebecca. Your 1 minute starts now.
I chose to run for treasurer because I have some experience with being treasurer in budgeting, and also being treasurer requires like a lot of math because it's budgeting and statistics. And to be honest, I'm really a math person and I just love to do math in general. And I believe that I would be able to find budgets to make sure that we get the fundraising we need to be able to create activities for the class of 25 that they both enjoy and stuff to create more like a stronger community between class of 25.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the other treasurer candidate, Huero. Your 1 minute begins now.
I chose to run for my specific position, which is treasurer, because I wanted to influence the school and our class for the better. And through treasurer, I believe I can achieve that. Another reason I'm running for this position because it is overall, it just overall seems fun and interesting. And I'm well and ready to work towards being a great treasurer the upcoming school year, if elected.
Okay, thank you. And then we will move on to the secretary candidates, and we'll start with Aldrin. Your 1 minute begins now.
I wanted to run for class of 2025 secretary, as I wanted to step up from just being on the sidelines participating in just rowdy rough BUTC. I wanted something more. I personally wanted this position, secretary, over another position like treasurer or vice president, due to my future needs require me to be able to log minutes, be able to take notes, and develop my skills in Microsoft Office, which is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and their Google equivalents such as Docs, Sheets, and Slides. And I definitely need these skills for future usage in the office usually.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the other secretary candidate, Ella. Your 1 minute begins now.
Okay, so I decided to run for secretary because not only do I want to be more involved and get into leadership, I believe that secretary was a good position to start off with. And also being a secretary, you have to be really organized, and I'm pretty organized. And with my organization skills, I can keep up and not fall behind because class office can get really overwhelming at times and be stressful. So you have to keep up. And then also being a leader, like a secretary, you have to be able to work and cooperate and listen to others to get others' ideas. And I enjoy doing that and listening to other ideas to create better and even more like enjoyable events. And you just have to be organized with note taking. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, we'll move on to the presidential candidates, and we'll start off with Jen. Your 1 minute starts now.
I'm running for president because it's a role that I've been drawn to for years. I ran in 8th grade and 9th grade. I'm set on this position just because I feel like it is the one that fits me the most. I don't think any others would fit me as well as this one does. I have a lot of love for this class, and I think that we have so much potential. In order to fulfill that potential, you need to have a strong class office, more specifically, a strong president, which is why I think that I'm qualified to run. And I think that's why I'm running for president.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to Kim. Your 1 minute starts now.
Serving as this year's freshman vice president, I unexpectedly gained a really great love and passion for our class And just being able to create and lead these events that allow us to form core high school memories is something I really enjoy and want to keep doing. And I feel like there's a lot to improve on, and I'm driven by that wanting to better our class because I know we have a lot of capability to do really great things. And I believe stepping it up to president, I can really grasp that chance to improve. And also considering the traits and experience I hold, it'll be really beneficial to our class. And being cooperative, dedicated, hardworking, organized, creative, and quick with ideas, I hold a lot of the major traits you should look for in a leader, and more specifically, a president.
Okay, moving on to the next presidential candidate. Well, Michaela, your 1 minute, it starts now.
As a president, you're responsible for keeping things in check and getting things done. When officers are lost or confused, you are the person with the answers. You are the person people look up to, and you are the person that calms the situation down. You not only need to be good with stressful situations, but you need to take that stressful situations and turn it to fun. People need a hyped leader that can not only make things not overworked or not stressful for them. And I know that I'm qualified for this position with my experience and I'm so outgoing and my time management. As I was president in 4th grade, 5th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade. So I hope to grow from my experience, and I know that I'm qualified for this position.
Thank you. And then we'll actually be moving on to the next question. Yeah, as vice president, working with the president is fairly important. How will you assist your president? All right, your 2 minutes are up. We'll start with Robin. Your 1 minute to answer starts now.
As vice president, I will assist the president in doing whatever they ask of me to do. Sometimes the work gets overwhelming for the president and even other positions. And when that happens, I'll support them and help out with the work even more if needed. And I'll also be sure to support the president and other officers, not just physically, but also emotionally.
Thank you. And we'll be moving on to the other vice president candidate. Tina, your 1 minute begins now.
Last year, I feel as though I assisted our vice president, Michaela, a lot. Like during rallies, I would help her decorate or get people ready for game participants or even just our rowdy rough participants during BOCC. And on our upcoming year, I would continue it, but even assist our president even more because a president can go through a lot because they have a lot of weight on their shoulders. So I would assist them by always checking in on them and knowing how they are mentally too.
Thank you. And with that, we'll be moving on to the next question, which is directed to the secretary candidates only. Organization is a big part of what a secretary is responsible for. What ways will you keep yourself and the cabinet organized? And with that, we will start with Ella. Your 1 minute to answer begins now.
Okay, so organization is a big part of what a secretary is responsible for. And okay, so a secretary needs to keep the cabinet organized, or needs to keep everything organized by constantly checking and communicating with the other class officers, so we're on top of things. And I would have like a planner and a notebook dedicated to just class office and note taking, because you need to be really organized, and without being organized, things can get really messy and miscommunication can happen. So it's really important to get on top of things and always communicate, because it's really important to talk to the other class officers.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the next secretary candidate. Aldrin, your 1 minute begins now.
As what the other candidates said, communication is a vital part to this position alongside organization. Definitely need to be in contact with, I'm going to be in contact with other members of our cabinet and be able to list down things as needed. I'll keep a calendar schedule for us and keep Google Drives for all of our files. And I'll keep on regularly checking our files and physical papers that we need organized to make sure we're on top of things, and to prevent miscommunication, always double check, triple check. And if all things wrong, it doesn't hurt to keep on just inquiring.
All right, thank you. And with that, we'll be moving on to the next question, which is directed towards everyone. So imagine this, you're now a part of your class office and there's a conflict with other class officers. How do you plan on approaching or solving the conflict? We'll start with the treasurer candidates. Rebecca, your 1 minute to answer begins now.
Personally, I would try to find the exact conflict between the officers and from both sides of the case in order to get everyone and all the involved parties basically how they feel towards it, as well as everyone else's, because any conflict within the cabinet affects everyone. And if there is no exact solution to the issue at first, I would try to come up with different compromises that could help the situation at first until an actual solution can be made in order to reduce the risk of any conflicts within the cabinet affecting the products of the cabinet and what we do for the class, and to make sure that we can still stay as like our own little like community type thing.
Your time is up. Thank you. And with that, we'll be moving on to the other treasurer candidate, Huero. Your 1 minute to answer begins now.
Conflict ever occur between class officers? A way I'd resolve it, and like Rebecca said, I would first try to understand each side and see how they feel about the conflict. Because during a conflict, people are usually, their minds aren't really in the right place. And just to let them express their feelings, help them direct it in a more understandable way could and most likely will help people understand what's currently happening. For example, a person is upset and another person is upset because they're arguing. They first have to understand each other and see how each other feels. And I would like to help them
Your
in a
time is
friendly.
up. Thank you. And then we'll be moving on to the presidential candidates. Let's start with Michaela. Your 1 minute to answer begins now.
It's during these situations, it's so important to stay professional. Like they said, get to know both sides and also know if the conflict is in class office or if it's a personal conflict. And let things breathe. Don't take action so fast because like Hero said, people aren't thinking straight. It's always important to have people know what they're saying before they say it, especially in class office because people are looking up to you, and keeping things private. It's so important so that people, rumors don't spread. Also reminding ourselves that we have class advisors. We don't always have to deal with these situations by ourselves. We have trusted adults that we can go to. And yeah, that's also what we did this year was whenever we had conflicts like that, we would bring it up to an adult because they had the most experience with these type of things.
Thank you. And then we'll be moving on to Jen. Your 1 minute to answer begins now.
If there's a conflict in the class office, I'm approaching it head first. I'm getting everyone who is involved into a room and I'm not leaving until the conflict is solved. I think that choosing to ignore the situation only causes more tension to grow and for situations that come out of class office to become a class office problem. This brings me back to the major point of communication and making sure that the cabinet has established healthy and honest relationships from the beginning. A lot of conflicts occur from miscommunication, mixed emotions, and other people's opinions. Facing them up front is the only way you can solve them.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Kim. Your 1 minute to answer begins now.
Being a freshman as a class officer, you face a lot of hate and discouragement and not knowing what to do in certain conflicts. And like Michaela and Jen brought up, what I've learned is that when it comes to conflicts, if you want to effectively solve something, you have to communicate and be honestly open to solutions. Talking it out with your class officers and actually facing the conflict, because if you keep putting it off for longer, the situation gets deeper and harder to solve. And class officers set an example, and you have to be respectful and aware that everyone has a different view on things and won't always agree with you. And of course, if things get really out of hand, we have our class advisors and staff to bring insight.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to our vice president candidates. We'll start with Tina. Your 1 minute to answer begins now.
With upcoming events, there's bound to be some conflict. So I'd speak to each of them to resolve any issues because at the end of the day, we are a team and we simply won't get any work done if we just keep on bickering. But if there is some bickering or some arguing, the least they can do is just do their part, do their job, and resolve it right after. Because if it goes on for longer, it's only going to get worse.
Thank you. And then with we'll be moving on to Robin. Your 1 minute to think, or sorry, your 1 minute to answer begins now.
When conflict appears in the cabinet, I will try my best to ease the tenseness. I will listen to all sides of the story and help create a time and space for them to talk out if needed. If I myself am involved in the conflict and it involves something bigger than me, which I am unable to control, I'll put all personal feelings aside and I will continue working alongside the cabinet because as class officers, our work involves more than just us. Whatever we do or decide on affects class of 2025. So I believe that personal feelings about one another should be set aside.
Thank you. And then we'll be moving on to the secretary candidates. Ella, your 1 minute to answer begins now.
Okay, so if there ever was conflict within the cabinet, I would have both parties talk it out and communicate because like I've constantly brought up throughout this whole forum and meeting is that communication is key. And if that doesn't work out, then they're just gonna have to cooperate and be able to work well together under the circumstances because even if there is conflict, they still have to fulfill their position. And but also you would give people time, like the people who are like bickering or arguing, give time to cool down. So when they're in the right mindset, they can talk it out. And if that doesn't work, then we're just gonna have to ask for assistance with the advisors because there's always other people and adults to help us out.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to Aldrin. Your 1 minute to answer begins now.
Mediation is a key tool to our cabinet symbolism to our class as we represent we are always scrutinized for our actions as we represent our class. It always depends what the conflict is, but the general structure I would go with is first separating our parties and gathering all the information I can about the conflict. Secondly, we need to calm those parties down, let them express their feelings after cooling them down, and I'll act as an arbitrator between them. Or if I'm involved, I'll be casting away my own feelings, work with them for a solution. If a resolution is met, great. If not, consider information, suggest resolutions. If that doesn't happen, we can always escalate to an adult, ask them what to do, have them act as an arbitrator. And conflicts is expected as some of our values may not align with in this day of age, but if we're able to mediate these conflicts, we can be a better cabinet and set an example for our class. And
thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll be moving on to our last and final question, which is directed towards the treasurer candidates. Fundraisers are a big part of a treasurer's job. What kind of fundraiser ideas do you have in mind right now? And with that, we'll be beginning with Huero. Your 1 minute to talk begins now.
Going back on what I said earlier, I believe we could provide new food and snacks than what is already provided for fundraising. Things such as other candies, I commonly see chocolates being sold. So I believe we could probably diversify a bit and get other types of candies and little snacks as well.
Thank you. And then we'll be moving on to Rebecca. Your 1 minute to answer begins now.
So I would want to have fundraisers that aren't just with food, like boba or other snacks that the class would want, but also like over the summer or like during spring, like after school, having like water balloons where each water balloon is sold for $1, or having things like fun runs. Like maybe that's just because I'm in running sports, but I feel like fun runs are a good way for people to not just exercise, but be able to raise money for the class and also to earn fun prizes at the end of it as well.
All right, thank you. And then with that, the class of 25 class office candidate forums are over. Thank you. You guys all did great. Thank you.